Greetings nerdlings and welcome to AmalgamNation presents World of Lorecraft, Herocraft, Varian Wrynn Edition, Part 2. Theramore Peace Summit. While taking a tour of Kalimdor, Varian was asked by Jaina Proudmoore to meet with the Orc Warchief Troll so that they may discuss plans to ease tensions between the Horde and the Alliance. Varian, however, was still wary of Orcs for their role in Stormwind's destruction during the First War, and didn't trust them to be true allies. Yet Jaina assured him that Troll was someone she trusted with her life. Though he was content with just Stormwind and the Horde no longer being in a state of open war, and reluctant to enforce such a peace, he was convinced by Anduin and Valyria to attend, citing that human-orc alliance may benefit Stormwind's prosperity. At Theramore, Varian and Troll had a peaceful discussion with an eye towards mutual gain. They first talked of their past and then discussed resource problems, such as the Horde's war against Night Elves for lumber. Varian offered to provide Troll's people with lumber, and in exchange the Warchief offered copper and exotic hides in return. Varian had to end the summit early, as Goldshire and Southshore were reported to be under simultaneous distress by the Scourge. Troll and Varian were about to depart amicably, but upon exiting Theramore, the Twilight's Hammer clan invaded the city. The Alliance races of the Twilight Cultists attacked the Horde representatives, while the Horde races of the Twilight Cultists attacked the Alliance representatives. After catching a glimpse of Garona, Varian thought that Troll had sent her to assassinate him, as the Shadow Council had done in the past with his father. After a time battling, the Twilight's Hammer's casualties began to rise. Varian was about to strike a mortal blow to Garona when Madan entered to protect his mother. Varian tossed Madan aside and was captured by a retreating Stasia, who left Garona to die at the hands of their targets. Garrosh blamed the Alliance for the attack, while Varian blamed the Horde, specifically Garrosh. Though Varian was suspicious of the Horde's involvement with the attack, he decided to investigate and reveal the true motives and conspirators of the attack by interrogating Garona himself. Yet Garona was ensorcelled with magic that made her believe that she had planned the assassination out of her own volition. All that Varian managed to get from her was that her mission was not only to assassinate him, but his son Anduin as well. Varian, enraged, was on the verge of dispatching Garona once again, only to be stopped by Jaina this time, who had claimed Garona was Theramore's prisoner. Before Varian left Theramore to prepare his campaign against the Scourge, he was convinced by Valyria to let her remain in Theramore and work with the ensorcelled Garona to reveal Garona's masters and deal with the threats to Varian and Anduin's safety. Varian declared he will no longer attend any more peace summits, that after the threat of the Scourge has been dealt with, he will return to Theramore to claim Garona for execution. Sometime after the defeat of the Lich King, Stormwind was being attacked by the Emerald Nightmare corruption. Varian was able to escape its corruption using an anti-dreaming potion, yet to his horror he was unable to save his son Anduin, who was one of many consumed by the Emerald Nightmare. When Malfurion Stormrage gathered a diverse army of survivors within the Emerald Dream to assault the Emerald Nightmare and do battle with the Nightmare Lord and his army of corrupted nightmare creatures, he tasked Varian to lead the army in the upcoming battle. Still embittered and distrustful of the Horde, he adamantly refused to lead an army with Horde members within its ranks and preferred that the Emerald Nightmare take the Horde. He later reconsidered and agreed to lead the army when he was convinced by Malfurion to put his hatred aside for Anduin's sake. Though the Horde members were wary to be under Varian's command, through the efforts of Bane Bloodhoof, the Horde races were able to put aside their differences and follow Varian's orders. Varian Wrynn led the diverse Dreamform army in the Emerald Dream, and against impossible odds, the army was able to keep the Emerald Nightmare's army preoccupied, while Thura and Malfurion defeated the Nightmare Lord on both the Emerald Dream and Azeroth Plains. Even as the battle grew dire, those who knew the legend of Logosh grew more confident under his leadership when they saw flashes of a wolf's face appear in Varian's Dreamform. After the threat of the Emerald Nightmare had been defeated, the world began to rebuild. King Varian was one of the Alliance guests who attended the wedding ceremony between Malfurion Stormrage and Tyrande Whisperwind. As Gen Greymane was boasting about Gilneas' victories against the Horde during a banquet welcoming the Alliance dignitaries, Varian arrived and mocked Gilneas, calling its people cowards and implying them to be weaklings. Despite these insults, Gen held his anger in check and tried to convince the King of Stormwind that Gilneas had changed, and that they were now ready to become staunch supporters of the alliance. Varian, however, was still bitter over Gilneas' abandonment of the alliance during their hour of need during the Third War, and denounced Gilneas as an ally, absolving himself of any association with the desperate nation. Varian, along with his son Anduin and the rest of the envoy from Stormwind, later attended the summit whereat the alliance representatives were to vote on the matter of Gilneas' readmittance into the alliance. The king's entrance was marked by Tyrande Whisperwind and Malfurion Stormrage as being somewhat showier than was typical, but otherwise Varian gave no indication of his intent until the Gilnean representatives, led by Gen, made their appearance at the summit, complete with a display of their worgen forms. As the vote commenced, Varian suddenly rose and gave a stirring speech about how much the alliance needed strong, loyal allies if it was to survive the cataclysm, only to turn his argument into another attack on Gilneas, outright calling them fair-weather friends and declaring that Stormwind would never consent to allowing such mongrels as the Gilneans into the alliance. With this, Varian led the Stormwind party out of the summit, leaving those who remained in an uproar and destroying any chance Gilneas had at being readmitted into the alliance. Though Malfurion later tried to persuade Varian to reconsider his position, his pleas fell on deaf ears. Varian cynically declared Malfurion's summit a failure, just like so many other things that transpired in his life. Varian went on to reveal that the turmoil his kingdom suffered under Onyxia's influence, the deaths of Tiffin and Marshal Windsor, and Lordaeron's fall all weigh heavily on him, and that even at that moment he struggled with being thrust into the position of humanity's de facto leader. Before departing, Malfurion advises Varian to forgive himself for his faults and not to hold Gen to the same high standards that he places upon himself, as Gen will never be able to compete nor be given the chance to redeem himself under such standards. After the summit, Varian planned to leave Darnassus as soon as possible and return to Stormwind. However, Anduin, having overheard his father and Malfurion's argument, decided that he would not return to Stormwind and would instead leave with Prophet Velen. Varian, desperate not to lose his son, adamantly urged him to return to Stormwind, eventually going so far as to beg his son not to leave. With his father refusing to listen to him, Anduin turned to leave, an act which drove Varian into a panic. Driven by rage and the fear of losing his son, he grabbed Anduin's arm and inadvertently hurt him. Horrified, Varian pled once more with Anduin to remain with him, but Anduin's mind was already made up, and he ultimately left with Velen. Following this, Varian sulked in Anduin's quarters, trying to drink away his sorrows. Malfurion invited him to go hunting in order to lift his spirits, but this was a ploy to bring Varian and Gen together. Varian agreed to the hunting proposal, but soon ran into Gen. Before long, an argument had sparked between the two kings about who was the better hunter, prompting Malfurion to propose a hunting competition to settle the matter. Relishing a chance to humiliate the Gilnean king in front of his subjects, Varian agreed to the challenge and attempted to kill the boar Gen was hunting in order to put him to shame. However, while Varian and Gen's hunting party were chasing the boar, they managed to agitate a massive bear. With one of Gen's subjects in danger, the Gilnean king and the King of Stormwind worked together to kill the bear, with Varian landing a killing blow to the bear's neck with his hunting knife. Gen and his worgen honoured Varian for his kill. However, Varian had vanished into the woods before the worgen had finished their howl. After much reflection, Varian sought Gen out again just as the Gilneans were about to depart from Darnassus. Varian asked Gen for his help in learning to control his own inner turmoil. Gen agreed and led him to the Howling Oak, where he showed him the druidic ritual that allowed the worgen to control their bestial fury, though he did warn the human king that not all survived the trials the ritual entailed, and that some lost themselves to their inner beasts and had to be put down as a result. Undeterred, Varian then drank the waters from the wells of tranquility, balance and fury all at once. Following Gen's instruction to recall the most relevant moments in his life and the choices that led to and stemmed from them, Varian first recalled his childhood. In Trial of Tranquility, Varian remembered how peaceful and happy he was growing up with his family, and how that had all ended when the orcs came, invaded his home and assassinated his father. Through this trial, Varian came to understand that though his childhood was taken from him by war and violence, the good memories would remain with him and would never be erased by the trauma he would face throughout the rest of his life. In the trial of balance, Varian recalled his life as a young king. Despite donning the facade of an intelligent, diplomatic, and upbeat ruler to his friends such as Prince Artus and his foster father King Tyrannus, Varian could not keep hidden the occasional bouts of despair and depression. Only his betrothed, Tiffin, was able to bring balance to his dark, brooding self. By bringing laughter and joy into his life, Tiffin helped Varian grow into the king that the people loved. Varian vowed to honour her memory by moving on from her death and learning to forgive, learning from his mistakes, and using them all as examples of how to confront his issues as a man, father, and monarch. In the Trial of Fury, Varian recalled the most precious thing in his life, his son Anduin. He often feared for Anduin's safety, but recognised that fear would only make him helpless to those things that threatened his son and his kingdom. Thinking of those threats put Varian in a rage, but as his anger grew, he recalled how his rage had hurt Anduin and drove him away. Varian turned on his rage and sought to control it, promising himself that he would no longer be dominated by his rage and would thereafter channel it only in battle, as a devastating force against those who sought to harm those that he loved. Varian heard Goldrun howling in approval, and he awakened again and the Worgen watching in awe as the aura of Goldrun enveloped him, proving without a shadow of a doubt that Varian was indeed Goldrun's champion. Varian told Genn to gather his Worgen and to follow him into the battle being waged in Ashenvale at that time. Having gathered the Worgen and his forces, Varian led the charge to Ashenvale and reinforced the Alliance forces battling there with Garrosh Hellscream's horde. With the spirit of Goldrun granting him renewed vigour, Varian led the charge against the horde, killing any Magnetor, Corcoran, and horde forces that stood in his way. Goldrun's image formed from the dust and mist left behind in Varian's wake, spurring many Alliance forces to yell the names Goldrun and Varian as their battle cry. Varian drew the Alliance races to him as he led an indomitable charge in his pursuit of Garrosh Hellscream. The two leaders of the Horde and the Alliance clashed on several occasions, killing all that interfered in their duel. Yet while Garrosh tired, Varian was still full of stamina, which allowed Varian to press on his attack. Varian subsequently was able to wound and disarm Garrosh of the mighty Gorehal. Before the fight could be concluded, however, a dying Magnetor separated the two combatants. Though Garrosh wanted to settle the matter, the tide of the battle had turned unfavourably for the Horde, and Garrosh was forced to retreat. Varian allowed him to leave, stating that a good hunter knows when to let his prey run. In the aftermath of the battle, Varian was honoured as the hero of the battle for Ashenvale and Goldrun's favoured champion. Varian later called for a second Alliance summit, this time acting as a strong proponent for the induction of Gilneas and the Worgen into the Alliance, having apologised to the Alliance dignitaries for letting his faults divide the Alliance. Varian later spoke of more recent and pressing issues, such as how many threats had arisen to challenge the Alliance and disrupt the peace that they worked so hard to attain. The Horde threatened the Alliance once more, and now more than ever the Alliance needed to band together and match their enemy's fury in order to survive the new Azeroth that Deathwing created. With the Worgen at their side, Varian assured his allies that the Alliance would prevail. Varian in World of Warcraft, or as players call it, Vanilla WoW. Until patch 1.9.0, players could witness the king in his captivity in the sewer dungeons of Alkaz Island just north of Terramore, though he was not involved in any quests at the time. With patch 1.10, Varian was replaced with an elite level 62 Myrmidon named Tidelord Rurgaz, and a sewer full of elite Naga, and Alkaz Island became home to Dr. Weevil, a major part of the Gates of Anchorage World event. The comic series suggests that this Varian was the twin which did not manage to escape, but was instead captured by the Naga and later ransomed back to Stormwind into the hands of Lady Katrana Prestor. Varian in Wrath of the Lich King. Varian Wrynn has been restored to his rightful throne as the King of Stormwind. is currently located in the throne room within Stormwind Keep, an area previously occupied by his son Anduin Wrynn. King Varian is now the proper Stormwind faction leader and gives many of the Alliance-specific quests formerly given by Bolvar Fordragon, including the quest chain to assassinate Nathanos Blightcaller. In addition, he now ends the Death Knight quest, Where Kings Walk. Soon after regaining his throne, Stormwind was attacked by the undead legions of the Scourge. Varian, alongside his friend Bolvar, was successful in repelling undead forces after a long battle in Stormwind Harbour. Founding the Valiant's expedition to cope with the Horde in destroying the Lich King, Varian sent Bolvar to oversee the creation of a base at Angrathar, the Rat Gate, in the Dragonblight, right in the shadow of Icecrown itself. Bolvar and Saurfang the Younger would wage war against the Lich King himself at the Rat Gate, but were betrayed by the Forsaken under Grand Apothecary Putris, who unleashed the new plague, causing the death of Bolvar and his men. At the personal request of High Lord Tyrion Fordring, King Varian permits Death Knights of the Ebon Blade into the Alliance to aid in the fight against the Lich King. After receiving word of Bolvar's death, Varian is overwhelmed with anger and sorrow, having considered Bolvar a brother ruling his kingdom and raising his son for years. He sent Jaina Proudmoore to Orgrimmar to discover the reason for the Horde's betrayal. He deemed this as an act of treason and demanded retribution for his friend's death. Jaina returned and informed Varian that Varimatris and the Royal Apothecary Society had betrayed them all, and the Horde no longer controlled Undercity. Varian and Jaina gathered the Alliance army and attacked Undercity, hoping to reclaim it as Lordaeron for the Alliance and bring Putris to justice. When entering Undercity, Varian becomes disgusted by the condition of the once great city, which he knew since childhood. Tracking Putris to the Apothecarium, Varian and Jaina defeated him, but to Varian's horror, they also discovered dozens of mutilated and defiled human corpses, on which the Apothecary Society experimented on to create the new plague. Realizing that although the Alliance and Horde agreed to a small truce over the years, the Forsaken had been secretly creating a means to kill them all. Varian confronts Thrall and declares that peace can never be achieved. When a fight breaks out between the Alliance and Horde, Jaina stops Thrall and Varian from killing each other and teleports Varian herself and the Alliance army back to Stormwind, hoping to stop further bloodshed and chaos. After losing his friend Bolvar Fordragon and defeating Grand Apothecary Putris, Varian appears to declare war against the Horde during the quest, the Battle for the Undercity, after the attack on Thrall and his forces in the Undercity. When Bran Bronzebeard learns that Yogg-Saron has escaped its ancient prison in Ulduar, Ronan and Jaina Proudmoore request aid from King Varian, and so he asks for them to meet in the Violet Citadel. While Ronan is speaking with King Varian, Thrall and Garrosh Hellscream arrive at the Citadel and disregard Jaina's warnings to not enter the tower. Before Ronan is able to explain, Varian turns and sees Thrall and Garrosh demanding to know what they are doing there. Garrosh insults Varian and draws his weapons, and Varian does the same before Garrosh charges at him, knocking Jaina out of the way in the process. After Ronan breaks the fight up, he calls upon the Horde and Alliance to work together against the Old God. Varian points out that more men died from the Horde's treachery at the Ratgate than were killed by the Scourge, and refuses to ally with them. He appears to withhold full Alliance support, telling Ronan he is true working with the Horde, and telling Thrall and Garrosh that he hopes the Death God, what the Vrykul or Vrykul call Yogg-Saron, takes them all, before promptly teleporting out of there with his men. King Varian, accompanied by Jaina Proudmoore, attends tournaments at the Crusaders Coliseum in Icecrown, surrounded by various champions and representatives of the Alliance. Varian, again accompanied by Jaina, appears in Icecrown Citadel during the Alliance outro, following the defeat of Deathbringer Saurfang. Myrddin Bronzebeard attempts to block Varrock Saurfang from claiming the body of his son, but Varian intervenes on the High Overlord's behalf, voicing his respect and honour for fellow warriors, and allows him to pass. Sometime after the opening of the Frostwing Halls, Varian can also be found in the entry hall of Light's Hammer. He provides the Strength of Wrynn buff for Alliance raiding parties. If you speak to him and tell him he is not needed, you will need to reset the instance, provided you are not already saved to it, in order to gain the buff again. Varian in Cataclysm. The King of Stormwind, recently returned to claim his rightful place, has little love for the Horde. His reasons are many. When Varian was a young boy, he saw his father murdered by the half-orc Garona. The Orcs' war chief Orgrim Doomhammer slew the valorous Anduin Lothar, who had delivered Varian safely to Lordaeron after the fall of Stormwind. Varian was later enslaved by the Orcish gladiator trainer Rhaegar Artfury, and at the Ratgate many brave Alliance soldiers died at the hands of the Forsaken's Royal Apothecary Society. Varian, who had always been wary of the Orcs, discovered that the Royal Apothecary Society had been developing the new plague for years. The events that transpired during the battle for the Undercity convinced him that the Horde has been left unchecked for too long. The time has come to make things right. He is also planning an invasion of Gilneas with Gen Greymane in Stormwind as they attempt to take Lordaeron from the Forsaken. Varian Wrynn is involved in the end of the Westfall storyline, where you must speak with him about the return of the Defias Brotherhood. Varian has been amassing a war fleet to assault the Twilight Hammer in the Twilight Highlands, but several setbacks have delayed its launch. In order to resolve the constant delays, Varian has tasked Prince Anduin to oversee the operation personally. Varian, wishing for his son to gain some life experience, but fearful for his safety, instructs the player to escort him throughout his duties as prince. This escort later turns into unraveling a Twilight Hammer plot, where a trusted Stormwind guard attempts to assassinate Varian, but Anduin thwarts his plans. Finally, Varian sends you to the Twilight Highlands to assist the Alliance via Fargo Flintlock's plane. Varian in Mists of Pandaria. Varian Wrynn welcomes new Pandaren into the Alliance after they have departed the Wandering Isle. He informs them of the basic tenets of the Alliance and tests their strength by sparring with them. Siege of Orgrimmar. Varian, together with Lortimar Theron, Jaina Proudmar and Sylvanas Windrunner, made landfall at the Bladefist Bay. After securing the area, Varian sends adventurers to meet with Vol'jin and Tyrande, who are located at the city's entrance. When the siege is ended, Troll is ready to end Garrosh's life, but Varian says that Garrosh's fate is not only Troll's to decide. Terran Zeus suggests that Garrosh should be taken to Pandaria for a trial. Varian and Troll agree. When Horde leaders were planning their next move, Jaina urges Varian to use the opportunity and dismantle the Horde. After hearing this, Varian says that he wants to speak with the war chief, who is revealed to be Vol'jin. Varian in Warlords of Draenor. Varian and Murad talked about their next move in the war room of the Stormwind Keep. Murad said that he would gladly go to Draenor. Varian allowed it and recommended a seasoned adventurer be put in charge while on Draenor. After the adventurer proves themselves throughout Draenor, Varian appoints them to general. Sometime after the Alliance garrison at Lunarfall was fully built, Varian arrived at the garrison to plan the Alliance's assault on the Tlan jungle. Varian in Legion. Varian Wrynn, the Stormwind fleet, and the Horde fleet led by Sylvanas Windrunner arrived at the Broken Isles several hours before a second regiment of Alliance and Horde heroes. As they approached the broken shore, Varian's airship sustained heavy damage from an infernal, causing it to collide with Sylvanas' airship. Two ships plummeted into the sea just off the coast of the Broken Isles, but Varian, Sylvanas and some of their forces managed to regroup and push the attack up onto the broken shore. The second regiment of Alliance forces eventually arrived to the battle on the broken shore several hours later, and were able to clear a path to Varian and what remained of the first attack force. The battle slowly progressed in their favour as the Alliance and Horde forces pushed closer toward Gul'dan. There were some setbacks along the way, most notably the apparent death of Tyrion Fordring, but the Alliance forces were able to repel the invading demons because Sylvanas and the Horde had been covering their flank from atop a nearby ridge. However, in the heat of battle, the Alliance cohorts were forced to retreat when their Horde allies appeared to have abandoned them. As the Alliance airship ascended in retreat, Gul'dan summoned a colossal Fell Reaver in front of the tomb of Sargeras, which grabbed hold of the airship and began to pull it down. Knowing that they would all die if the gunship was destroyed, Varian handed Gen Greymane a letter to take to his son. Varian then leapt atop the Fell Reaver to destroy it, as the remaining Alliance forces retreated aboard the airship. After destroying the Fell Reaver, Varian fought through several demons. However, just steps away from Gul'dan, he was stabbed, perhaps fatally, by two Fell Guards. Gul'dan mocked Varian, telling him that he would be remembered as the king who sacrificed his life for nothing. Defiant to the end, Varian's last words were, "For the Alliance," before Gul'dan tore his body apart by infusing him with a fatal dose of Fell magic. When the tragic news was delivered to Stormwind, Varian's son Anduin became king of Stormwind through succession. Varian's remains lie on the broken shore at Wrynnfall, in front of the tomb of Sargeras. Thank you for watching, and as always remember, play to game and game to play.